Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People. I'm Courtney Brame. Something Positive for Positive People is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides mental health resources for people who've experienced the trauma of a positive STI diagnosis. Today's guest, am I supposed to say your name? Or are we giving you an alias?
You can say my first name. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, you have a pretty unique first name, so I can just go without saying your name at all, just to keep it safe if you wanted to uh, keep your anonymity.
I don't think anyone would really know,
All
so
right.
I don't mind.
Okay. Well, today's guest. Well, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. All right. Our guest today. Let's see if I can go without saying your name at all. But our guest has a boring ass story. Apparently, if you ask her about her experience living with HSV, so I'm gonna let you just go ahead and get started. I haven't interviewed anybody in a minute about herpes. I hope I'm not rusty. Shit.
Um, okay, so I was dating someone from my high school, and we had met my junior year, and everything was like, hunky dory, pretty great. And then probably like 2 years in, senior year, and we were like kind of at a crossroads of like, oh gosh, like, are we gonna continue dating through college, or are we gonna go our separate ways? So I kind of like left the decision up to him, and he was like, you know what, I want to keep you around. Like, I want to keep dating you. So I was like, okay, like, fine. We'll do the long distance thing. I was in school in New York and he was in Connecticut. Probably about 5.5, 6 hour difference for the between the two schools. And that's when everything kind of shit hit the fan, essentially. So he kind of would, no, he wouldn't kind of, but he would ignore me all the time, and I would get no more than a 5 minute phone conversation with him, and it would just be like, all right, gotta go, bye.
So
So he
wait,
kind of started like,
was this like when the honeymoon phase passed or what?
yeah, honeymoon phase was definitely over, and like, I probably should have known when we started dating that like he wasn't that great of a guy because my friends did not like him, and my family did not like him. So I was like, you know what? Like, let's just see how it goes. He's better than my last boyfriend. And I was an idiot essentially and just stayed with him for another for the 4.5 years that we were together. So I wouldn't get much of a response from him when we got into college. Fast forward to like my sophomore year of college, and
At
I
this
was still
point, how
going
long were
through a
y'all
lot.
together?
That was going into the fourth year,
Okay.
going into the last year of us being together. So I started to kind of notice that he would like drift off, and I was going through a lot with my school, and I was in the process of transferring. And we had gone home for Thanksgiving. This was like our last Thanksgiving together, and he had pretty much put me in my place in the sense of I was only going to be arm candy, and he brought me home to his family for the last Thanksgiving, and his cousin was asking him questions about like, oh, like what are you guys gonna do after college? Like, are you gonna move in together? Kind of like going into the direction of like you guys were gonna be together for a while, and he shut me down completely. Interrupted me in this whole conversation, and he was grabs my arm, and he said, "Oh, she'll follow me anywhere." So that's when things kind of like freaked me out a little. So a little bit after Thanksgiving break, I started to experience some like fever, cold sweats, and my lymph nodes were really, really swollen. We couldn't figure out why. So I went back to school. I then all of a sudden got really sick, 104, 105 fever. Probably should have went to the hospital. Don't like hospitals, so I just ignored it, pushed through. I was sick for about, I want to say 4 weeks. So I pretty much missed my final exams. My professors all kind of were like, you know what, don't worry about it. You're really sick. Just take care of yourself, rest up. And I put in the paperwork for me to transfer schools. So that was when I was most likely exposed during that Thanksgiving break. And I didn't think anything of it. I had no idea. I went to a Catholic high school. I really didn't get sex education. And pretty obvious to my friends at the time that, you know, all the signs were there that he was cheating on me and he was seeing other people. He was very protective of his phone, protective of his social media. Like, he did not show me off whatsoever unless it was around his family. So he then, when I transferred, he helped me, move in down to Washington D.C. where I go to school, and we were together for that fall semester. And during this time, or sorry, this spring semester, and during this time, I shaved my head, and I was totally bald, completely out of choice. It was my school's tradition, and he did not take it very well. We got into multiple arguments over my decision to shave my head, and it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. But it was the benefit that I was shaving my head for was for cancer research,
How
so it wasn't
dare
for any.
you shave his head?
What? No, I shaved my head.
No, that's what I mean. Like he treats you like his fucking property. Fuck him.
Yeah, yeah, he really did treat me like I was his property. So, I mean, we argued about it for almost 2 or 3 weeks, right before I shaved my head, and I said, fuck it, like, I'm gonna do it. This is my head. This is my hair. Like, I want to be happy. I'm gonna shave my head. So
And wait, to be
his
clear, did you have
decision.
like really long, flowy hair or something?
Yes, I
Okay.
did. My hair was probably around right around my shoulders, a little bit past my shoulders. It was long. I've always had long hair. So I shaved it, and he did not take it very well at all. He freaked out on me. He was like, "How dare you do such a thing? You disobeyed my decision." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Like, this isn't your decision to make in the first place." And then he started throwing things in, like, very extremely manipulative phrases, like, "Oh, you're not going to look pretty. I love your hair. I think you should keep your hair." And at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, you're at this point looking for ways to manipulate me even further than you already have. Like, he drove me away from my friends and my family, my cousins more specifically. Uh, they just did not want me to continue anything with this person. So when I shaved my head, I had a couple of friends that were like, "Hey, you should save your hair." I was like, "Why would I save it?" It was like, my few friends that knew about the situation that was going on, they were like, "Well, um, for starters, he said that he adores your hair and wants you to keep it. So might as well just, save some of it in a Ziploc bag and send it to him for Valentine's Day." So I listened, and I did that. So further down the road, probably we were celebrating almost 4.5 years, and he sits me down after we go out to dinner. He's like, "You really hurt me." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, I went through 4.5 years of just not saying anything, through all of the manipulation, all of the lies. Like, I hurt you one time, and it's like the end of the world. But when I went through all of the emotional abuse from you, it doesn't matter. So that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, maybe it's time to, like, cut things off. And I couldn't bring myself to do it for almost 6 months. And honestly, like, I really only hung out and stayed because of his family. His family adored me. They were so caring and so supportive. And I was like, you know what? Like, maybe I can just push it through. But it just wasn't worth it in the end. So summer rolls around, and we were hanging out at uh, a friend's house for 4th of July party. This was this past July. Um,
In 2020 or
he
2019?
said 2019.
Okay.
So he says to me, uh, at the time, I was working 2 jobs, and I was really exhausted. And I really didn't have a whole lot of time for anyone. So when I did make the time for him, it was like, "Hey, like, come over. You can hang out and then sleep over." And he was all down for it. And then the day arrives, 4th of July comes, and I was like, "Hey, like, you're gonna come home with me, right? Like, we're gonna sleep over, and then I'll just go to work from there." He was making up all these excuses and just like, "Oh, well, I'm going to hang out with friends," and I asked who, and he was like, I didn't care who you hung out with, just as long as you're not going to go and cheat on me. Well, little did I know he was cheating on me for almost the last 2 years of our relationship. And at that point, after the 4th of July, I was done. I went through so much with him that I just couldn't continue fake being happy around him. Like, I
Yeah.
was always so angry. And, you know, I probably should have left when I had shaved my head because he just refused to have sex with me for the last 6 months. So I just, obviously, if you're not going to have sex with me, like, obviously you're going to get it somewhere else.
Yeah. Why was cheating the thing that
So
made
then
you go?
I had heard down the grapevine from a few friends that he had got on Tinder while we were dating.
Oh shit.
And I approached this conversation like, so I have had a few friends send me screenshots of your Tinder profile. And he was like, yeah, what about it? Like, it's
What?
totally, yeah, yeah, what about it? And I was like, you have a girlfriend. And he was like, yeah, I know, but I want to have a Tinder too. It's all a joke. I'm not actually meeting these people. And like, at that point, like, how else do I approach the conversation? Like, are you cheating on me? And then it would just escalate to him saying, don't ask questions you don't want to know the answer to.
Oh, all right, all
Yeah.
right. Wait. So all of this is happening, but why was it that cheating or finding out that he actually cheated, even though the signs were there, why did it take that for you to decide that you were over the relationship?
I, what really put me over the edge was when I shaved my head.
Uh huh.
Because he said, I won't be pretty unless I have hair. And I was like, oh, no, no. Like, I am the last person you should be saying that to. I am a strong, independent woman. Like, I'm a feminist kind of attitude. But, like, with him, he just knew how to manipulate me. And he was very much of, like, narcissistic sociopath tendencies. And his parents were in had psychological background. Like, they both worked in psych wards, they both worked in prison systems, and they just knew how to manipulate people. So in turn, he learned from his parents how to manipulate me, and I was just very easily manipulated by him. Like, he could say and do anything, and he'd find an excuse, and I'd believe it. And like, it's stupid and crazy to say that I was so dumb enough to stay for 4.5 years, but like, I didn't know any better. So I just, at that point, after that whole 4th of July fiasco, I was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm done. So I broke up with him, gave him all of his shit back. And we didn't speak to each other. I like checked in and was like, hey, like, how are you doing? Kind of like, I'm still here for you, I'll still be friends with you kind of thing. And he kind of like shut me down completely. It was like, it was almost like he was waiting for me to find something out. So I started seeing someone else, and things were going great. He was such a nice guy, and we were going out and hanging out all the time after work, before work, and so we started having sex. And I was always very condoms. And he was fine with it up until like things between us started to get very serious between me and this new person. So we stopped using condoms, like an idiot. And I was like, you know what? I'm a little nervous about this whole thing. I haven't been tested for STDs since I started dating my second boyfriend, the one that I was with for 4.5 years. So I went in just for a routine checkup. And they they were like, okay, like, when's the last time you got tested? And I told them, and the doctors were like, oh, don't worry about it, I'm sure you'll be fine. So I waited around, I think, almost 7 to 10 days for my results to get back. So I got the call in August, and I had a complete, like, shut down panic mode. I was in a serious, like, dark place at the time after finding out that my ex-boyfriend of 4.5 years, someone that I cared so much about, could just turn around and cheat on me like that, and like, not decency to tell me. And I had to find out through an STD test if he had cheated on me. So I had reached out to my ex-boyfriend and I said, you know,
What were you positive for?
I don't know how else to put this, but you gave me an STD. And he blocked me. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, so now what? So I called his house.
Wait,
Called
what?
his house
Real
number.
quick, what were you positive for?
I was positive for HSV 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. And you know it came from your ex and not the guy that you just had sex with?
Correct, correct. It came from my ex. Because I had notified the new person that I was sleeping with, and I said, hey, like, you should get tested. He got tested and was negative. So I had notified my ex-boyfriend and said, hey, like, you need to get tested. I tested positive for this. I'm just looking out for you. Like, I want you to be safe. So then he told me to fuck off and get out of his life because I notified him that I tested positive for something. And I said, you know, I can't even be like that upset over this, but like at the same time, like thanks for ruining my life because you know you were openly cheating on me. Your friends knew about this, and they just didn't say anything to me, and I was completely clueless. So, needless to say, we never spoke again, and is he's probably still giving herpes to other people, and that's what really, really is the thing that really resonates with me a lot because it's like he's just going out and sleeping with these other women and like they have no idea.
You know what I'm gonna start doing?
And like they're gonna go in for some routine testing. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna start a directory where y'all can just leave these guys' names and we can just say, hey, these are the people who are just going around giving people hurt. No, I'm just kidding. I can't do that.
I mean,
But like
honestly, like
that,
if you're not gonna
unfortunately,
touch it,
is such a common thing, though. Like where,
it is very common. Like
yeah,
if you're not gonna even acknowledge the fact that you gave someone an STD, like you were with them for 4.5 years, like that's on you. That's on your moral conscience. But like, wow. I
mm,
was so appalled at the fact that like I was with this person for 4.5 years, someone who I cared about. Supposedly he cared about me, but then could turn around and cheat on me like that. Like
right. One
it
of
was
the
crazy.
one of the things that throughout this journey of something positive for positive people, I'm finding is we look at people who get an STI and we look at them in a certain light. We look at them as a number, for instance, and we assume that there are certain behaviors that got them to the point that they're at, when in reality that isn't the case. When in reality we have situations like yours that happen all the time where you were just in the kind of relationship that you should not have been in. And so the fact that you were with him and he was cheating and he demonstrated all these abusive behaviors, you stuck with him long enough, I guess, to have had the experience of being exposed to genital herpes from this partner, obviously, um, it speaks volumes to where STD prevention efforts need to be shifted towards, which is in line with being able to support people's mental health and navigating boundaries and relationships and being able to support people in like identifying toxic behavior in their partnerships with other people. Because if you had the know-how and if you had uh, the resources that you needed in order to recognize that you're dealing with a particular type of person that you need to get the fuck away from, then perhaps that could have kept you from being in the relationship beyond a certain extent. Because, of course, I'm sure there were red flags very early in the relationship that had your sex education program in Catholic school, right? Had your sex education program
It was
highlighted.
non-existent.
Yeah, it was non-existent, but like even if it were to include things that sex education from sex educators who are certified includes, such as body autonomy, talking about consent, navigating boundaries, being able to communicate in regards to abuse and defend yourself against things like emotional abuse, you might not have even been in this relationship because the red flags were so blatant in the beginning.
See, well, that even highlights my first relationship. first time I ever had sex, my boyfriend at the time raped me. Like I didn't consent. He just pushed me down, got on top of me, and had his way with me. Like it was really, really traumatizing. And that's just what I thought was everyone had the same experience. And then I would speak to other people and they'd be like, no, like that's not normal. And I was like, oh God, like I've been raped. Like I had no idea. So I went from my first boyfriend raping me to my second boyfriend, the second person I've ever slept with, cheating on me, being with them for 4.5 years, and giving me an STD. Like that is just something that I never thought could happen. And I always thought, like, oh, STDs are people who are, promiscuous and have so many partners and they're constantly switching back and forth and never use condoms, never use protection. When my experience was the complete opposite.
Yeah. Uh, that brings me to the point of like, that's what you expected relationships to be like. That was your
Mm-hmm.
first relationship. That was your first sexual experience, unfortunately. So that kind of set the foundation of what your normal was
Mm-hmm.
until you moved forward from it. And having been a survivor of rape, like the experiences after with your first boyfriend, after the first time that he raped you, was that just the nature of the relationship? Did the experiences turn out to be different with him or no?
Now looking back between the two relationships, there were a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities with manipulation and scare tactics and the inability to say no between both relationships. Like I had no say whatsoever. And I just kind of accepted it as it was and got used to it. And I think that's what really trapped me in that kind of a situation.
Yeah. And so, at no fault of your own, like having not had things like, again, boundaries and being able to know that your voice matters in relationships, this wasn't brought into your sex education program because what? It's abstinence, don't have sex till you're married. And if you
Right.
do have sex beforehand, what? Wear a condom so you don't get an STD.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. I mean, even then it was I had a teacher in high school say, "I don't need birth control, I need self-control." That's what our sex ed was. That's it. That's all it was.
I'd wear that t shirt. I don't need self control, I need birth control. I'd flip that. Oh wow. Um, it bothers me that I don't know. I feel like this kind of thing is so normalized in people's experiences. Like even for the first time having sex, like this is what you think it's supposed to look like, and it until you talk to other people about it, and then like how much did it take? How long did it take for you to even talk to your friends about sex? Considering coming from Catholic school, Catholic background, I don't think that that's a normal thing that's discussed. Period. So
No,
you had
it
this.
wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. But I was the first one out of my friends to lose my virginity. But it wasn't my choice. So like I waited almost 2 years to say anything, like to anyone.
So
And
at
when
this
I
point.
did kind of like come out more about it, and there were ways to prevent what happened, and it ate me up for years. And now, like I'm always the one to disclose what happened to me to new partners because there's certain things that like I can't handle very well because of these two experiences.
When you say there's things you can't handle very well, what do you mean?
So, what happened with my first boyfriend when he raped me? He laid on top of me and just held me down, uh, face to face. I can't handle it. I go into complete panic mode. It's PTSD. It's complete anxiety attack all over again if someone does that. So like it's hard to go into, say, a one night stand with someone and voice that dark of a situation that's happened to me just to someone that I just met.
Hmm. So
Like, nobody wants to hear that.
I hate that there's not a better way for me to ask this question, but in the event that you, well, do you have one night stands? Let me ask that first. Or have
I
you?
have had them in the past. I mean, pre-COVID,
Okay.
obviously, I have had one night stands in the past.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess my question is missionary sex just something that is off the table for new partners right away?
You know, yes and no. If I know them, not just run into them at a bar and go home with them kind of thing, but if I know them and we're friends and they know everything that's happened to me in the past, like I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. But complete random hookup that I have experienced, I typically will not do any sort of missionary face to face kind of thing.
Okay. And so you feel safe with people that you can disclose this information to. You can tell, hey, I was raped in missionary and I don't want to have missionary sex because it triggers me. Or if it's someone that, like you said, friends, someone that's safe and trustworthy, okay, this is someone that I can just go along with it. Has there ever been a time where you maybe didn't disclose that you were raped and you found yourself triggered after after you were raped?
Um, Not particularly. I haven't ever had to do that because I usually keep it away from missionary. I Once someone wants to do it, I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Completely shut it down.
Well, okay, so if I guess we're here, so we're gonna just stay here. So like I'm asking this because I'm imagining that while your first sexual experience was rape in missionary, I would imagine that positions where there isn't like intimacy or intimate contact, like not looking at each other, so doggy style, for instance, would essentially be triggering as well because, yeah, in this case, you were held down and looked at, I guess. And in this case, is it just safer for you not to be seen? Because I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing back there? Like, I don't trust this. I don't trust you. But that seems safer for
No,
you.
no, definitely like not looking in someone's eyes for me is a lot safer. If it's a one night stand situation, like if I've been speaking to someone for a long period of time and things are escalating and we're getting to know each other more, and I've disclosed the fact that I have been raped and I have an STD and they're like pretty okay with it, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I can trust this person and I know that I can take my first experience and only keep it with that person and remind myself that, not everyone's like that and not everyone's going to take advantage of me the way that that person had taken advantage of me. So, I guess it would really depend on how I can read that person and their behavior and their mannerisms over the experience itself.
Okay. Have you talked to anyone professionally, like about all of this?
Oh boy. Oh, we're getting into that. No.
Well,
I
I asked because you seem so like you're not I'm not getting triggered vibes from you at all. Like you feel very comfortable talking through this.
I feel comfortable talking about it because I've had to explain it so many times. Like, yeah, sure, it sucks. God, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional from this.
Oh fuck, I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to
No,
avoid that.
no, it's okay. It's really okay. Like, I'm so strong of a person that I just don't let things like that bother me anymore. Like, for a long time, it just ate me up inside, and I just didn't want to have sex with anyone ever again. And I thought, nobody's gonna want me. Nobody's gonna want to have sex with me. Nobody's gonna want me as a partner or anything like that. And I kind of overcame the fact that, these were two bad experiences that I dealt with two individuals that it made me really put things into perspective. Not everyone is going to be like that. Not everyone is going to be the one to take advantage of someone else who has been hurt in the past. So I kind of like, I don't want to say that I disassociated the relationships with sex. More so, I disassociated with the fact of those two individuals did these bad things to me. And I kind of overcame the fact that people are better than these two in my whole entire life that I will experience.
And you got this just from talking about it to your support system.
Yeah, talking about it with friends, the ones that really saw me at my worst. Like I wanted when I was diagnosed with HSV 1 and 2, I wanted to drop out of college. I didn't think as a 21-year-old I would ever have a normal sex life. I never thought that I would ever have someone in my life that was consistent because I had an STD. And like that's not true at all. And I was so used to the stigma that everyone is taught at such a young age about herpes and like, oh, it's such a horrible thing, and oh, it's the gift that keeps on giving that everyone talks about. And people joke about herpes in movies and how it's such a horrible thing, and like it's not all that bad. As someone who has it now, like it's a different experience seeing it through the eyes of someone who has never experienced an STI or an STD, and then having it is totally different.
Mm-hmm. Um, this is a really great point to just plug in that the experience that you have after testing positive for an STI completely goes against STI, STD prevention efforts. STD prevention looks like don't get an STD. And then you get one and there's nothing there for you. Except for when you start to search, you find all of these willing people to put their own STI status out there and serve as a means of support. So things like something positive for positive people or different Instagram accounts that you may find or social media pages, these are post diagnosis resources and support. And I think that there's really a strong need for these post diagnosis support resources to work with and be integrated into STD prevention efforts so that there's a seemingly effortless transition from, okay, prevention failed me, but I'm not a failure because now I have these resources on the other side of that. Like, that needs to happen at this point for when people who receive a diagnosis get their diagnosis, they're able to just smoothly walk into the next steps of what to do next rather than just feeling like, oh my God, I fucked up. I'm fucked up. Like there's a difference there between I fucked up and then I am fucked up, right? And
Yeah, definitely.
that's where a lot of people are when they get their diagnosis. Like that's what, collectively we genuinely believe about ourselves. So, in just being able to get this shit out there to where, you have what you need in order to seek your support around you. Like you have the tools, language, resources to be able to go to your friends and talk about what you're experiencing and going through with confidence and talk about it to your potential sexual partners. Like it's the kind of shit we need.
Yeah, I mean, I've even noticed the language that I had used in the past related with sex and STDs, and I would use the term, and I catch myself sometimes, and I say it, "Are you clean?" And that kind of insinuates the fact that like someone with an STI or STD is dirty. Like everyone experiences an STD or an STI in their lifetime at any point, and either they don't even realize it, or someone else that they know has an STD or an STI, and it shouldn't be based on if someone's clean or dirty. Like with someone who has herpes now, it puts things into perspective of, oh God, like I'm telling other people that they can view me as something as like dirty. Like that's not what it should be focused on whatsoever. It should be a norm that people experience STIs and STDs, but it's not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in our culture, that it's just very negative and very much of a taboo subject still.
Hmm. And we really just need to normalize people knowing what their status is. And it's unfortunate that, again, a lot of the burden falls on women, but don't fuck dudes who don't get tested for STIs. Like, I know
Yeah,
majority of the women that I know have to at least go and have an annual women's wellness exam, whereas guys can go shit 6 years without having gonna get tested, and we'll use our most recent sexual partner status. So, let's say I'm, in a relationship with a woman who goes to get her pap smear, right? And she happens to get STI testing done, and she hits me up, says, "Yep, no STDs." Cool. If I'm fucking three other women, then I can tell them based on the last status
right.
of her that I'm not giving them any STDs, so therefore I don't have any STDs because I don't be, that means they don't have any because I didn't give it to her. And that's the
Yeah,
logic because at a mental level it makes sense. All right, if I'm fucking four people without protection, let's say, and one of those people gets tested and doesn't have an STI, then that generally means that I don't have an STI and I can keep doing what I'm doing. But like what we don't understand is that some STIs don't show symptoms. Some take a while to show up at all. Um, and some you just won't know about until you get tested. I know people who've had different STIs that didn't come up until either a partner told them, "Hey, you should get tested because I have an STI." You may not know that you have one, but go and get tested. And then others who just go in for one thing and find out that it's something else that's caused by an STI. So these are the kinds of things that need to be normalized and talked about because we have to get to a place of knowing what our STI status is and being able to articulate that to partners and expect the same thing from them.
yeah, I 110% agree on that. Like, anytime I get involved or attempt to get involved with someone, my first question is, when was the last time you got tested for STDs? And usually it's like, I
uh,
don't know, like 5 years ago.
Never.
And I can't help but cringe. And I'm like, oh, sorry, gotta go. Like, nope, bye.
And that's exactly how it should be. It should be like that. Like that should be
Right.
one of the standards. Like, oh, I like someone who's tall. I like a pretty smile. I like someone who knows their STI status, right?
Yeah, yeah. And like, I've disclosed to men before, and I tell them, I say like the importance of getting tested regularly, and every time you change a partner, you go and get tested, or every 3 months go and get tested. And they're like, oh wow, like maybe I should go get tested. And then they go get tested, and I feel like, I advocated for them to go and get tested and do the right thing and like know their status. And then they text me back, and it's like, hey, I'm clean, but like I feel better now that I know that I don't have anything, and I now will regularly from now on go get tested every 3 months or 6 months or however long they would choose to.
Look at you out here
Because
changing
I want to be
lives.
the
Let's
one,
go.
right? Like I want to be the one to advocate for those who are too afraid to.
Yeah.
And I found your podcast through the feature that you did with oh God, what is it
This
called?
podcast will kill you.
Yes, this podcast will kill you. And I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I was like, oh my God, like this is everything that I wanted to do and more for other people that feel too afraid to say anything about their status. And I'll tell people all the time, like, oh, I have herpes, I have herpes, I have herpes. Like, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I'd rather normalize it than have it be this taboo subject for everyone to, like, be afraid of.
And here's the thing too that I noticed, like how you said you've talked about being raped again and again and again to people around you, to your support system. And now you say you talk about herpes again and again and again and again to people around you. Do you find that talking about it more is something that helps with your healing process?
Definitely. It definitely helps a lot. When I first was diagnosed, I wanted to drop out of college, and I wanted to never speak to anyone ever again, and I never wanted to have sex again. And all of the reasons why people don't get tested is exactly why I just didn't want to do anything. I just wanted completely to disassociate with the entire thing. And I kind of like put things into perspective. Oh, sorry, it's my dog.
Sorry, I got construction going on, so there's gonna be all types of shit happening in this podcast.
All right, okay, as long as it's not just me.
No.
Um, it it really puts, I can't put myself down just because I have a disease,
Hmm.
and it's a different status from other people. Yet herpes is so easily spread by people. Like 90% of the population has type 1, but nobody knows it. And it's just, me talking about it and educating other people on it, it really is something that helped me heal and realize that, like, I can get into a relationship or change partners and have a normal sex life
Yeah, whatever
by
normal
just
means.
disclosing, saying, and teaching and educating.
Yeah. I was saying whatever normal means. Like, who wants a
Right,
normal
like
sex life
normal.
anyway?
Normal is a bad word to say, especially pertaining to sex, because like everybody's into something different.
Yeah.
Um, with me, it just, I guess it was kind of like from the background that I had with my lack of education on it. I just thought of normal as in, oh, no STDs, no STDs, no STIs. That's what I thought was normal. But like that's
Oh
not
man.
normal.
Nah, this is way more complex than that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So talking about educating other people, like I'm not embarrassed by the fact that I have herpes
Yeah.
anymore. There
Yeah.
was a time when I was first diagnosed that I hated it, and I'll admit, like I would self harm and I would cut up my legs and just be like, "You are this horrible person. You are this disgusting person," and you can't live your life like that. You can't live your life in a negative way.
I didn't know about the cutting and self harming.
Yeah, I really didn't admit that to anyone. um, it's not something that I am proud of, and if I'm gonna do anything to prevent someone else from doing that, it's by telling my story, my experience.
Yeah. Um, at what point did you do the cutting? Like, were you in the relationships or was it after your diagnosis?
After diagnosis.
Mm.
After
So, the way I
diagnosis.
understand uh, cutting, and I could be completely wrong, but the way that I've understood it was you are numb and you want to feel something, so you cut. But was that your experience or no?
Definitely. Definitely my experience of diagnosis. A lot of fear and numbness. Like I just didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. What brought you out of the cutting phase?
Um, that's a good question.
You realize how
I
dope
kind
you
of,
were. That's all it was.
I mean, I don't want to be like that person to say that, but like, I realized how much of a badass I am. Like, I was raped at 16. I got into another shitty relationship. I shaved my head. I sent this man my hair to show him, to prove him a point. Like, I'm a badass for
Wait a
doing
minute,
that.
wait a
Not a
minute,
lot of
wait a
people
minute,
would
wait a
do
minute.
that.
I thought you sent him the hair because it was like, oh, see, it's pretty and you liked it. So here, I'll send you
No.
some. All right. So you were being
No,
condescending
I
there.
shaved my head. I shaved my head. I shaved the hair, and I sent it to him for Valentine's Day because he told me, "Yeah, oh, I love your hair so much." So I just decided to give it to him, like
Oh, I read
to
that
be
wrong.
so kind.
Okay, I read it. I read it without sarcasm. I was like, damn, you really love this dude.
No, oh my God, no. This is like let me spite the shit out of you.
Okay, got it. Um,
Yeah.
okay. What were some things that you did to, look back and say how bad of a badass you were? Like, can you help me with that? Just imagine I'm someone who cuts myself after my herpes diagnosis, and I've been through some shit. What do you tell me? What do you say to me in order for you to get me to the place that you got to, of just looking back and realizing like you struggled, you thrived, you're still here, and you're not gonna go back to that.
I think it's really a matter of someone's strength in themselves and how they believe in themselves. And, I don't want to say it's related with confidence at all whatsoever because, people have shit confidence and we are our own worst critics. And I would honestly have to say to someone, like, what is that razor going to do to you? Like, sure, it feels good temporarily, but in the long run, like, that's not worth it.
Can we
You
argue?
yourself have to,
Can we argue that it
sorry.
doesn't? Can we argue that it doesn't really feel good?
To some people it does, some people it doesn't. I mean,
Like, can you get a
it's almost
tattoo?
like an emotional release. I'm sorry?
Can you get a tattoo?
I have three.
No, that's what I mean. Like, instead of cutting, like, can we say, "Hey, go get a tattoo," or what? Like, is it kind of similar?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be the person to particularly ask that.
Oh, okay. My bad. Bad connection. Bad connection.
Yeah, tattoos mean something to me. It's a permanent piece of me that I went through in my experience, and my emotional healing is through tattoos and piercings and self-expression. And cutting to me meant a release of almost what I was not being able to come to terms with.
So like what you felt on the inside, cutting allowed you to feel on the outside.
Right.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
All
A
right.
little different from a lot of people.
Yeah.
This whole process really has been extremely eye-opening, and people are always very nervous to tell people that they have an STD or whatever their status is. But for me, like, I just, at some point of disassociating and hurting myself through the whole process, I just kind of like let go and was like, you know what, I'm better than this. And if someone doesn't want to sleep with me because of my status, like, that's on them. Like, they're losing
Yeah.
out on a great time.
Yes, a Ashley
And
Manta, the canisexual on all social media platforms, said it best. She said, "I'm awesome at sex, and if you don't want to have sex with me, then you're missing out. So,
right,
sucks for you."
right. Like, I even said that to guys after they're like, "Ew, you're gross." And I'm like, "Well, fine. You're missing out on a great fucking time. Like, bye."
Uh,
Um,
and then you could tell
it's
them, "I
not
don't
my
even
loss.
like
It's their
like."
loss.
You should tell them, "I don't even like missionary."
I really could, but I don't know. Like, it's weird to say, but herpes is a blessing in disguise.
It's
Um,
not weird. So many people say that. Many more people say it than don't say it. Like even if at some point
right?
they were like, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me," it transforms into, "Well, this is probably one of the better things that's ever happened to me."
Mhm. That's 100% how I feel at the beginning of my diagnosis. I was like, this is awful. I'm disgusting. And then it transformed to, I'm a fucking badass. I'm a baddie in bed. Like, if someone doesn't want
Hey,
to sleep with them, that's on them,
let's
bitch.
go.
Like, what are you doing? And, like, it just really, I hate to say it, but I love to say it. Like, it's kind of uplifting.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me feel a lot better about the situation and everything that I've been through and how much of a badass I am and how much stronger of a person I am in the end to come through all of that shit and just be handed the worst cards and then be like, no what? I shaved my head. I'm a bad bitch.
Hey, let's go. That's that bad bitch energy right there. Let's go.
Yeah, like whenever I do meet new people and I'm like, yeah, I shaved my head before, and they're like, you're a bad bitch, and I'm like, yes, I am a bad bitch, and then it just makes me feel so good. Like, I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. Well, So much for this being another boring ass podcast interview, right? Or another, would you say another boring ass story, herpes story?
I mean, I thought it. I mean, I don't know. It's my story, so I don't really think it's that interesting. Like, sure, I was with someone for 4.5 years. They cheated on me. Oh dear. Like, oh god. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not so boring after all.
Yeah. Well, I thought that this was very useful. I appreciate your openness, your vulnerability, and your smile, your tears, your joy, all the energy that you brought to this podcast episode. This is going to be really useful to someone, and um, I hope that person uh, is open to sharing that this was useful to them, so that I can
Yeah.
give you that validation that you actually did help someone just by sharing your story.
I mean, as a young 20 something, I don't want anyone else to experience this in a negative way that I did. And all I want to do is just spread how positive you are after diagnosis and how you just embrace yourself completely with an absolute different person, and self love is a big thing
Mm-hmm.
after diagnosis. And I want to tell whoever, however old you are when you are diagnosed, that like it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it's gonna get better.
Yep. All right. That's a really good place to wrap this thing up. So, like I said, I appreciate having you. If you are listening to this and you are a fan of the Something Positive for Positive People podcast, I started a little Facebook community that is going to evolve into something. I don't know exactly what yet. So I got like 30 people in there now just chilling, waiting on me to start explaining what this is. But it's just a community of people who hear about that Facebook group through listening to the Something Positive for Positive People podcast. I don't advertise this or promote it anywhere else. It is exclusively for podcast members. I want to get people, or I'm sorry, podcast listeners. I want to get people out of the habit of exclusively being in herpes support groups and herpes spaces, so that we can get more comfortable allowing ourselves to allow allies in and seeing what intelligent discussions around sexual health period look like, and sex positivity and kink and BDSM and just consent and boundaries and navigating relationships. I want all of that in I want us to be able to take all of that into whatever space we find ourselves in and be able to share community with one another despite our STI status, right? A couple of other announcements, like going into 2021, Something Positive for Positive People is going to begin expanding those therapy services to be able to help people with getting connected to a licensed mental health care professional. If you can afford it, great, give us as much money as you can and we'll get the negotiations going. If you cannot afford it, then we want to be able to pay for it for you. So we're seeking grants and funding opportunities to continue to expand our network of mental health care professionals, so that we can get people who've experienced the trauma of an STI diagnosis connected to the mental health resources that they need. Thank you to Let's Get Checked for sponsoring Something Positive for Positive People. Visit trylgc.com/SPFPP and you can select from a number of different STI testing kits or a COVID test if you want. And your purchase of any of these contributes to the Something Positive for Positive People podcast, because the more of their tests that y'all buy using that promo code SPFPP at checkout, the more money we get in order to continue to expand on the services of Something Positive for Positive People. And since I have been newly appointed the executive director of this nonprofit organization, I get to get paid too. So help a brother out. If you can support us with a donation, please do so. Visit www.spfpp.org and you'll see various options for you to leave a donation, or you can leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you listen on. That's it. Do you want to say bye or anything else, guest, whose name I have managed to not say at all throughout this podcast recording?
Um, no, I mean I'm pretty good. I mean, you know what? Honestly, if you really want to drop my name in there, go ahead.
Ah, thanks, Brenna.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. Till next time, stay sex positive.